we are going to slaughter this white beauty, but first things first, safety. It's essential to use gloves when working with chemicals or just oils and other stuff in general when you are doing bike maintenance, but of course it's not as much comfy to work with gloves, but it's very much good for your health. I would strongly suggest to clean everything as precisely as you can, just because when you are going to press out the bearings, if there are mud or sand, it might hurt your frame even more. And here I'm adding few pieces of fabric in order that swing arm won't touch the frame directly. After cleaning the frame, I'm going to do the same thing about those main linkages as well. You can see that there are already a lot of scratches there and even a rust on that pivot itself. And what I'm going to do here is going to lose your mind, but don't worry, everything is under control and it's just to eliminate a bit of the rust. Before you're going to say what I have done with that sanding paper, be aware that it was very soft because it was previously used on the brake rotors, so it was soft just to eliminate that rust. And one thing was I not aware of is what this bolt does. And thanks to Bernardo Vargas, who said that this is to hold this preload ring, and to add this even further, this one unscrews from the pivot. You can see that there is a thread there. Probably there is some special tool to unscrew this down, but here how it looks like. I will add additional information about this in video where we'll be reassemble everything back into place, but this is just a heads up that you would know about this, because I didn't know and I barely saw that. But now once I understood it's here, things are making a lot more sense now, and we will cover this in the upcoming video. The plastic cover, which goes on top of a swing arm, actually scratches the frame quite a lot, so for that reason I also applied protective tape somewhat in the past. That way two different material objects won't scratch that much. And here you can see that I'm showcasing how the movement of old generation bolt is inside the bushing. It's not nothing major, but I've seen some guys having a lot more play here. But hopefully with new bolt, even though it's not for that reason or being replaced, it could help a bit more. Once everything is properly cleaned, we'll begin eliminating the bearings with a mix of multiple tools which are not exactly suitable for that purpose. Because I don't have a press tool, I just tried to do something with what's on hand, and one of that is a bottom bracket bearings removal tool. And actually you should be very careful with this, because inside around the bearing there is not that much space, but this tool fits perfectly around the edges. So when knocking with the hammer, be sure that those edges are pointing on the bearing and not into the frame, because the distance there between your error and not is very thin, so be aware of that. Next, we will try to do something with what I made up from a bottom bearing press tool, and actually I kind of had idea to use the ball head here and apply some additional elements on this axle and on this threaded rod, but eventually I understood that, well, I'm going to use too much of those, so I'm going to do something else. And what I did here is that I just took, if I'm not mistaken, 13 millimeters head, and it fitted perfectly on the bearing. What's strange enough is that it went out very easily just inside your hands, so definitely it's not a perfect solution, but as long as it does the job, why not? So we can see that from time to time I'm just checking whether it does something, and it actually did. And again, those pivots has some scratches from the mud than riding in extreme conditions. Next, we are going to the Chainstay linkage, which again, when it's on the bike, is a bit more complicated to do so, but it's still possible. And what I'm using here is just a metal piece which has flat surface in the end, and by knocking it into 4 different sides, I'm just hitting in a few different locations on the bearing sides, and it comes out very easily. Here is the inner tube which comes between the bearings, and actually this is the one which causes a lot of noise if bearings comes down, because how I noticed that is in the past the bearings were loose and inside there was a knocking sound, so that was the reason how that knocking sound has been created. So here you can see the tool I'm using here. It's a bit out of focus, but you could have seen that it's just an extender to the ball head, exactly matches the size of a bearing. So that was it. It was a very simple process, and I'm figuring it out that it's possible to do that without removing the swing arm, because in the past I was doing that with swing arm removed, and also I applied some sticker here, so that was a good way to go. We'll continue to put those bearings in and then just reassemble everything back into place. Hopefully it will work. Will it? We will see in the next video.